for taking the time out. I know you have a very busy schedule, so it means a lot to us that you're here with us today. I think it'd be great for our audience if we began with you telling us a bit about AI for India. I think it'll give us great context for the conversation going forward.
Okay. Thanks, first of all, for having me on this podcast. AI4India basically started as a conversation with some like-minded people where we saw the rapid explosion of AI, especially after the launch of generative AI by OpenAI. And we said that this is an area which is going to have far-reaching impact in the future, and India as a country cannot be left behind. Uh, we have been a little slow in adoption of digital technology compared to the rest of the world. Although in the last 7, 8, 10 years, we have taken a leapfrog, and in some areas like finance and transactions and so on, we have outpaced the world. But the fact is that AI is a highly evolved subject. It requires a lot of development and attention, and we have to start right now. Already many countries in the world are racing ahead. So with that view, we said, let's put together a forum where our pure objective will be to see development of AI for India, but also for the benefit of all Indians, which means we need to look at solutions which are accessible, keeping in mind the diversity of the country, uh, which are affordable for almost everyone, and how do we use AI to leapfrog the development of our nation. So with that in mind, we went around, spoke to a lot more people. It's today a forum of close to 25 people from various backgrounds, not just technology, but other application fields as well. And we are growing slowly but surely.
Amazing, amazing. And it's completely a voluntary organization, isn't it?
That's right.
I think that's very remarkable that you guys have been dedicating your time to this. And you mentioned in the beginning that what motivated you all was seeing the explosion in technology that's happened. So, intelligence has been around for a while, but people
Right.
have really taken notice after Chat GPT and generative AI. So, can you explain to the audience a bit about, what that leapfrog was, what that jump was from artificial intelligence being just something that was in the background to suddenly being at the forefront and being everywhere?
Right. So you're right. AI has been, as a field, been around for almost 6 decades. Uh, I have my batchmates who passed out more than 3 decades ago, working in the field of AI, and they're very, very senior researchers in the area all over the world. Um, and we have been using AI applications for a long time, for more than 12, 15 years now. Whether it's in our searches, whether it's in our e-commerce, when we are booking a cab and so on, there are AI applications everywhere. But it was always something used by technology companies to deliver their services a little better for us. Uh, all that changed almost exactly 2 years ago when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, and it brought AI front and center, right? So any one of us could go in, type a query on a chat bar, which has got a prompt, and you would have things coming out, right? So it gave access to everybody, and it had the ability to generate, which is why it was called generative AI. It could generate text, it could generate images, can now generate audio and even video, which is the next big leap that AI companies are looking at. So that has brought in a lot of attention. Now people are seeing truly the potential of AI, some of which has already been realized, but there is vast opportunity to explore further. And I think all the ups and downsides of AI that we keep hearing about will be vastly different, as we move along and things will take its own course, etc. But I am personally very convinced that the potential of AI is going to be far reaching, and it's going to be overall highly beneficial for humanity as a whole.
Could you, like, for our context, for everyone's context, is there anything you can compare the advent of AI to? Like perhaps the industrial revolution, just to give us an idea of like the scale of progress that we could look at from AI.
Um, well, yes and no, right? So each revolution has had impact in improving people's lives. The industrial revolution, which brought in automation, um, the digital revolution, which took away monotony of a lot of uh, white collar tasks and so on. And now AI will be the knowledge revolution. It's more than anything else is going to democratize access of knowledge, ability to process that knowledge to further our interests. Right. In the process, it will also keep removing a lot of other mundane activities that a lot of human beings are today uh, uh, indulging in, but it's going to continue to move us forward. Uh, some people say, a lot of experts believe that the true impact of AI will be far more than any of the previous technologies to date. But, you know, in hindsight, things always look different. So we have to see as it goes along. Regardless, it's going to have a deep, meaningful, long term impact on humanity.
So that makes a lot of sense. I think, it's always in hindsight that we see the real benefit of a technology or the real impact that it's had. Now, speaking of AI and the development it's had so far, of course, we mentioned that, ChatGPT and general AI has kind of evolved. It's a leapfrog. But would you still say it's in its initial stages, or do you think we've come very far in the AI journey?
The more I look at it, I think we are still in the first 5% of the AI development uh, journey. And actually, it's never going to be a destination based, right? Because
Keep
constantly
evolving.
technology will keep evolving and improving, etc. I mean, just go back a little. Without digital technology, there could not have been any AI,
Absolutely.
right? Because digital technology enabled uh, ability of humans to collect and digitize data, which forms the bedrock of development of AI, right? So without that, we couldn't have developed AI at all. It also helped us collect learnings from over a period of time, and those learnings have been used to build better models. But it's a continuous development process, and it will continue to improve with time. There's still a lot of work to be done. As AI improves, we discover also more lacunas, more shortcomings of AI. Like I say, my favorite phrase is that AI is something, the perceptions of AI keep oscillating between two Fs, fascination and fear, right? So one day something new happens, a new model comes, a new tool comes out, and there is great fascination, saying, "Wow, I never imagined that AI could do this." And the very next day, there will be some fears. Oh, but it's going to do this, and it's going to, you know, uh, empower criminals, and it's going to take away jobs, and it's going to increase divide between haves and have-nots, etc., etc. Right? So we keep oscillating between these two, and this is something I believe will carry on for some time. We will keep swinging till the pendulum kind of slows down and we start realizing the true worth and value. We have to be cognizant of the fears and we have to address those fears as we are building this technology. And we have to pare down our expectations of fascination so that it becomes more realistic and, more importantly, more relevant and useful to truly develop ourselves as human beings.
That's fair enough. And I think the point about fear and fascination is a very interesting one because, as you were saying, I was thinking about sci fi, which is the basis for a lot of technology, motivated a lot of engineers
Right.
to get into the field. And if you look at the way that AI is portrayed in sci fi, it also oscillates between the two fascination and fear.
Right.
A lot of the worries that people have about AI, especially people who aren't very tech savvy or aren't knowledgeable on the subject, is very doomsday scenarios, Terminator, Matrix, things like that. So it's always fascinating to see how that actually percolates into our understanding today as well. But when we speak about fear of AI, I think one thing that has to come up is regulation. And I think governments have kind of been running behind AI development in terms of the speed. Like regulation often is behind technological progress. So, do you feel that currently in India and in the world, there is enough AI regulation that governments are doing enough to regulate the field? Or do you feel that some frameworks need to be put in place, some guardrails need to be put into place?
Um, when it comes to regulations or even guardrails, I think there are both sides, right? So too much regulations can hamper development of a new technology, uh, and in many ways, therefore, put it back or not help us realize the true potential of that technology. However, too little could lead to misuse, malpractices, etc., which is also not desirable. So, what is the right regulation or what kind of right policies and frameworks we need to have in place? I think will keep evolving. We're still at an early stage. Um, uh, One place where regulations definitely have a strong role to play is in terms of controlling the data, right? What kind of data is going into training these AI models, who owns them, whether it is fairly being used, fair compensation, all kinds of issues is going to be there, protecting privacy, etc. Um, but on top of that, when you're training the models, what kind of regulations are required? Should we limit the ability of these models, not limit the ability, etc. Are questions I think still need a lot of discussion, and not just by the technology people. I think it needs discussion by the public at large, by philosophers and thinkers, because that's how human beings are built, right? We are not just black and white. We are multiple shades of gray, and all those different voices need to be heard, and all those perspectives need to be kept in mind. Not easy, because governments tend to, it's hard for governments to be playing in shades of gray, right? They have to take a definitive position. Um, Personally, I think the whole issue of GDPR has curtailed development of technology in Europe. Uh, you see very few high technology advancements coming from European countries right now, because their rules, laws, and regulations are so stiff that most of the European entrepreneurs tend to go out of Europe to US, to Canada, to even Middle East now is becoming a big area, etc., and doing their developments there. So these companies are no longer European. Whereas in the US, there is hardly any regulation, and therefore, most of the big technology companies are centered in the US, and they are doing fantastic development all the time.
So, I think that answer gave me the perfect segue to get into data, which is, of course, I know a subject that's dear to your heart as well. And as we look at the GDPR, I think India also has its Data Protection Act that hopefully should be coming out soon. Now, my question is, you have seen how the space has evolved. Do you feel that the way that data is being collected today is beneficial to consumers and to companies, or is there a need for change in any way?
So very interesting question. There are four core fundamentals of AI development, right? One is at the base is data, um, which is used to train the AI models, the computability, uh, the models themselves, and human capital, which is required to build all this, right? Uh, Now, one of the things we find is when we were talking to various developers, startups in the area, they said we want to build models, but we don't have access to the right data. And then when we started looking around and probing, there is this huge debate even going on about all the models, the large language models which have been developed, where there are questions regarding whether the data source was ethically sourced, the data use was ethically sourced, um, enough consent has been given, whether the data is clean and unbiased. There was recently a notice given by Indian government to Wikipedia that a lot of their data seems to be biased against India by a small group of people who are indulging in this mischief. And Wikipedia forms the bulk of training of the original large language models. And once they're trained, it is you can't untrain these models.
Yes.
Right? The way they are built, and you don't even know how they have been trained. The whole system of the transformers model, which is used to train these data, is in that sense not very transparent. So it's very hard to figure out. And these companies haven't told us, even if they know, they haven't told us how exactly the data has been used, what is the exact nature of data which has been used, and so on. So there are lots of issues of right data, rightfully used, etc., which is coming, and especially in specific applications, right? So while there is general data available on the internet, but if you want to look at specific data related to, say, healthcare or in education or in agriculture or industrial various applications in research and so on, then enough data has not been used to train models. And you can't use a generalized model, which is what the current models are, to train them, because you can't have one model which is trained on everything under the sun and will operate everything. So, which is the need when specifically people are trying to build their models, whether relevant to India, whether trying to address language issues or working in specialized fields, etc. People said, where is the data? We don't have adequate data. One thing we have to understand is that if you look at the global context, then only a small percentage of data available on the internet comes from India. Most of it has been data collected from the West because they had a head start. They were using internet is solutions a lot more than us. The penetration of internet-based services is a lot higher, all kinds of services, etc. Whereas in India, only little specific kind of data is available. And the problem compounds when you start looking at the diversity of languages and culture and so on. So not enough has been put down. So if you look at the existing large language models, they have the ability to translate. But when you look at English to Hindi, it is still okay. There are some issues. But when you start going down to other Indian languages, Telugu, Tamil, Bengali, then start bringing down completely. Right? And it's not just the issue of a language. In India, most people now use mixed languages, right? So we don't speak only English or only Hindi. It will be English, which is a combination of Hindi and English. But in some cities, you go to Bangalore, people may be using words from 4 different languages: English, Hindi, Kannada, and Tamil. Because there's a lot of Tamil influence there. So how does an AI model make sense of all of this? Means there has to be a lot of that kind of data which has gone into training these models. So these are the problems many Indian companies are trying to solve for India. No company sitting in the US is trying to solve this problem because they have other things to look after. So data becomes very crucial as far as compute is concerned. Indian government has already announced a mission to set up a compute facility, and the government is spending a lot of money, over 10,000 crores in that mission. We have the human capital, no doubt about that. We have one of the largest AI capable human capitals in the world.
I think it's the highest, right? 16% of the world.
That's
AI
right.
talent
Yeah.
is there.
So we have the human capital. If we are able to harness this data and then start building models, we could be well ahead of anybody else in the world.
But this specific problem of data, and I know you do have a potential solution to it, which we'll get into. I want to know, how do we solve for that? So that is the question that I think I've been wanting to come to. You have a DataDaan campaign under AI4India. Can you talk a bit about that and how that helps solve the larger issue of having ethically collected Indian data?
Right. So, like I said, there is a need for data. Right. All developers are saying not only do we need data, but we need usable data. So many institutions may have a lot of data collected, but it's not in a usable format and so on. So we said, first of all, can we make people aware of the fact that their data may be useful, right? And if they believe so, can they come forward and just donate their data, which is why the branding DataDaan, right? And Daan is part of our Indian culture. We believe in giving Daan, Dakshina for various causes, especially when it comes to the area of knowledge, right? So knowledge imparting is something we all take a lot of pride on, and culturally, our society has been built on that. So can we use this opportunity to encourage people to donate their data? So thus was formed DataDaan. Shashi Shekhar, my co-founder, and I, we kind of thought about it, and then we also spoke to CPRG, which is a policy group, and they have partnered with us to come out or formulate this initiative, where we are encouraging people to just come and say, I have access to this data, please go and use it for development of AI and research purposes and so on. So we started with a white paper, and we have taken feedback from a lot of people. This is all that. Now we are in the process of developing a platform where people can come and pledge the data they would like to donate, and it will have access at various levels for different users to come and get access to that data and use it for their research and development purposes. So we are hopeful that this will at least create a lot of awareness amongst people that their data can help build a digital India for the future, and therefore there are many ways they can come forward. Even individuals, all of us have some data which we don't think about, and which we can easily offer, our past medical records, or imagine medical records of somebody who is no more, and is hugely valuable to train a specialized medical model, but useless
And
to
those
us, right?
reports mostly just get shredded after someone
Right.
passes away or
Yeah,
thrown
so,
away. So
lots of these things, these kinds of data about everywhere. We haven't, in the last 20, 30 years, been as good as documenting and chronicling data as some of the other markets. Here is a great opportunity to do that. And then this, I think, as we are witnessing more, but like I said, first is raw data, and then the usable data, which is the niche data. So that will also provide opportunity for a lot of service providers to come in and say, hey, I will come and help, clean up this data, enrich it in different ways, create models from different data sets together, and make it more worthwhile for the researchers and developers and so on.
So, sir, you mentioned usable data and usable formats. So, can you give us some examples of what a usable format of data is? So, if I have medical records at home, for example,
Right.
now how do I make those usable data for someone who wants to say, use it for data donation or for any other purpose
Right.
regarding AI? Like, how does that data become usable for data?
So, any piece of data, you have medical record. For example, you have an old X-ray of yours, right? Uh, Now that X-ray by itself is just an image, right? It needs to be properly labeled for a system to be able to detect it. If there are some underlying reports or associated diagnosis with that, if that can be attached along with this, will make it more usable. In what context? If does it have the age of the person, the gender of the person, etc., all labeled together and so on. So there are various ways of adding information to the core data and making it more usable. And also the ability to, when you have vast fields of data, which is good data, which is not so good data, which is relevant, not relevant, how do we figure out? So I think it requires a lot of human intervention. Over a period of time, that human intervention can also be automated with some AI models which will come in. But in the beginning, somebody has to start saying this is usable, this is not usable, this is how I can add some values to it, which makes it more useful and so on.
Understood, sir. Understood. So, sir, I mean, I have of course read the DataDaan white paper, and we'll be linking in the show notes in case someone else wants to take a look or any of the audience wants to know more. But are you still taking suggestions and still taking feedback based on the white paper, or is that closed now?
So officially we have closed, but we are always open to more feedback. I mean, this is not, we are, like I said earlier, we are a voluntary organization. We are working towards enabling the entire AI development ecosystem, and all kind of suggestions, help, volunteering is more than welcome.
Wonderful. So you guys know now that if you guys have any inputs, please visit www.ai4india.org and you can get more information there. And send in your suggestions. So moving a bit further from DataDaan, now, let's say things start working out. And already, AI is very capable. So if I'm starting an enterprise today, or if I work in an enterprise, would do you have any suggestions on how we can incorporate AI into our work?
Oh, absolutely. And I think every organization today is looking at applications of AI because, one, primarily because there is so much hype. But I think what is still missing, especially I can talk of organizations in India, of which I've seen many, people are still struggling to find the right use case for themselves, right? Where exactly will it be useful? What should I pay for it? How should I evaluate it? And things like those. So even before uh, jumping into, say, adopting AI, I think what people need to do is have a better understanding of their whole organization, how the organizations work, and especially when organizations grow big. Um, I think nobody really has a singular perspective of how my company works, right? Because it's grown so large and people have churned in over a period of time and so on. So they know a direction that this is the business I'm in and this is what I do. These are the things I'm good at. This not what I'm good at, etc. But if it was a truly organic being, then do we know exactly how each of the parts work and what is efficient and what is not efficient? Then start putting down the objectives. What are your objectives for use with AI? Not just fascination. Fascination is gone, right? Uh, do you want to use it to improve employee productivity? Do you want to use it to improve employee efficiency or organizational efficiency? Do you want to use it to cut costs somewhere, or do you want to use it to improve outputs and outcomes? Do you want to predict better? Or so there are multiple, lots and lots of different ways in which AI solutions can be used. It's not a single that I will drop in an AI and the magic will happen to the organization. It could be in better customer engagement. It could be in better lead management. It could improve your whole manufacturing cycle. It could help. There could be applications that can just reduce uh, accidents within your factory premises and so on. It could help in managing your supply chains better and so on. Right. So unless properly identified areas are highlighted and then specific projects are created saying this is what I want to use AI for, what are the solutions that are available, then you will have the right result. Uh, of late, there is this whole talk of AI agents, and agentic AI will have a role to play because then you can start creating agents for almost each function. There could be a finance agent helping the finance team, or a legal agent helping the legal team, or a marketing agent working with the marketing team, and so on. But again, the clearer the objectives are, what tasks do we want to automate through the use of AI, the better the outcomes would be.
Okay. That I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that gives a lot, for business leaders and everyone to think about. It's not just about applying AI, it's about figuring out the actual use case that works for your organization
Absolutely.
and where it can add value. I think a big trend right now is just to add AI for the sake of AI.
Right.
You see organizations which technically should have nothing to do with AI just throwing in, dot AI into their names. So that's also been a fascinating development. So now we are at this stage in India where we've talked about the talent pool and we're trying to figure out the data a bit. What role do you feel the government can play to kind of help India become a AI powerhouse in the next few years? Like, how do you think industry, government, and other stakeholders can come together to really help India reach the top tiers of AI?
See, I think the government has already initiated many steps. So there are various initiatives of the government. The really helpful one will be the computability that the government is adding, which will be accessible to all. Some of the things which people don't directly realize, but which can, I think, go a long way in helping development of AI in India, are something like what was announced just last week, One Nation, One Subscription, which will empower our research community a lot more. giving access to almost all the research properties from around the world, free of cost to our researchers. A lot of that is going to go into AI development or AI related development, which makes it so usable for our human capital to build something significant. Uh, we already have a digital bill, more or less, in place. And I think the government is actively looking at many other ways of applying AI-based applications in various spheres of governance. Railways has announced projects. Various police forces are looking at AI tools for better monitoring and so on, etc. So the good thing is the government is very aware, constantly trying to work with usage of AI and ensuring that the whole ecosystem develops. And it's an constantly evolving field, so I'm sure more initiatives from the government will come. What I understand is that government is very, very positively inclined toward development of AI, and I'm sure they will help and support as much as they can.
That's amazing to hear. So when we talk about governments and AI as well, I think there's a geopolitical angle to all of this as well. So we've seen it with microchips already. Foreign countries have kind of got a monopoly on the technology, specifically the United States. Do you see something similar happening in AI, and how can countries kind of hedge their bets in that situation?
Absolutely. I think uh, the future geopolitical battles will be based around technology and go on with technology. And since AI is going to have applications in every sphere, including defense, very strongly, uh, therefore, having a strong control over AI development and the core AI technologies within your country is very important. So, the whole issue of sovereign AI starts taking precedence. I know there are some, the experienced voices who have been talking about the fact that India doesn't need to build sovereign models and we should just work with applications, but I completely disagree. I think, like I said, one, when we look at models developed in the Western world, then they're biased towards the West simply because the data they've been trained on, the people who have been building them, etc., don't have understanding of India, and
Around
they
the
will never have.
context.
They don't have the context. They don't necessarily appreciate the culture, etc., etc., and they don't necessarily seem to. At the end of the day, any private enterprise which is developing all this is doing it for commercial purposes.
Of course.
And by and large, for digital companies, India has been a relatively small market. So they're not going to start developing solutions for the Indian market where the payback is going to be small, right? They will rather focus on markets where the payback is going to be large. So we have to look after our interests, and from that perspective, ensuring that we have models which we can control in case there is a geopolitical tension, there is uh, data sovereignty, so that we are able to ensure there is no bias against the country, and we are able to protect the rights of our citizens going forward in the future, so that tomorrow, if countries start weaponizing AI systems and tools, we are not caught in the back foot.
Fair enough. I think that makes a lot of sense. I hope policymakers who listen to this will take that into consideration. So we've talked a lot about some use cases, from India. You've mentioned, unique use cases for India. Can you give us some examples, since you work in the field, of some unique use cases you are seeing of AI, specifically to the Indian context?
See, I think one area which a lot of companies are already developing, and the government has the Bhashini initiative. There is another uh, team under the blessings of the government, which is developing something called Anuvadari. So, uh, one unique big challenge in the Indian context is the diversity of languages, right, and diversity
Absolutely.
of cultures. I don't think any other country has this level of this diversity.
I
Most
doubt it.
countries
I doubt
are
it.
single language speaking, or they may at best have two languages, etc. Whereas here we are, a federation of different states, which is everybody built on a unique language diversity. So that becomes an important area to address. where we can we can easily, seamlessly work between languages to bridge the divides between people, make sure that all content therefore can be readily available to all people, whether that content is to do with news dissemination, government policies, of course, entertainment, sports, and so on, etc. So that's an area where uh, big development is happening. Uh, but healthcare, unique challenges, education, again, unique challenges, and education, healthcare, etc., compounded with the language complexity. So, unless you solve language, how do you impart healthcare or education to villages in the language of the people who can make use of uh, in agriculture related fields? Lots of areas. I mean, it has to be specifically designed for it. In agriculture, for example, we have unique soil conditions, we have unique weather conditions, we have unique crop patterns, we have small farms, we have unique farming methods. So, unless models are built for that, how do you cater to the Indian farmer community?
Absolutely. I think that comes down to, what both your organization and our organization believe in. That technology needs to not only empower a few, but has to empower everyone. So,
That's
when
right.
it comes to the farming communities, when it comes to the whole country, regardless of language, that's when we'll see the real potential of AI for India,
Right.
which was, oh, I did that plug in on purpose, by the way.
Good.
Uh,
Yeah, so I mean, that's an extremely important aspect to keep in mind, that technology should be used to benefit as many people as possible, right? I mean, the best example we have created till date is UPI. It's so convenient, so easy, anybody can use it, and therefore it has become a revolution in payments anywhere in the world. And more countries around the world are trying to absorb the UPI system.
yeah.
Uh,
Do you see potential for India building something on AI on similar lines as the digital stack that we see?
Absolutely. And I think I'm forgetting who, but somebody recently said if we can solve it for India, then we'll solve it for the world. Because uh, India is a complex market, right, of various things. So you take autonomous driving, right? Autonomous driving is something which AI has to solve with better vision
Yeah.
capabilities. And if we can drive autonomously on Indian roads, then I'm sure we can drive anywhere
Yeah, I was about to say, I
on
think
the
the
planet.
day AI can handle Delhi and Mumbai roads, I think that's the day we know it's like come to its peak.
Right. I was recently talking to someone, even in the US, the autonomous vehicles don't perform very well if there are no proper lane markings and
Yeah.
no proper signages and so on, etc. And which is the reason why it's not really become mainstream and there are still big regulatory hurdles. But I know there is significant development happening in the space in AI. Because there are companies working with Indian conditions. We don't have any lane markings, we don't have any signages, and we have a very diversified traffic on the road, and our roads are not properly laid out, etc. And yet these systems are performing well. So this and lots of other examples, if they can be useful and they can solve for Indian complexity, then they'll be useful anywhere else in the world. And I'm sure, I'm certain that in India, our researchers and developers will solve it at a fraction of the cost. That
Wonderful.
becomes another big advantage for other uh, countries of the global south and emerging markets.
I think as a knowledge center, India really has the potential to kind of bring down the cost of AI for everyone. As we develop it for ourselves, we really have the chance to percolate it to other parts of the world that need it and perhaps can't develop it themselves like we
Right.
can. So I think I've taken up a lot of your time already. So I won't take up too much longer. Just want your final thoughts on AI. If you had to leave our listeners with one thought about AI, what would it be?
I want to leave with two thoughts.
Oh, perfect.
One, the potential of AI will be far more relevant to countries like India, which has limited resources, and therefore it has the ability to bridge the resource gap, right? Technology to some extent has already bridged a lot of our resource gap. It has brought so many, thanks to some very powerful policies by the government over the last 10 years, it has brought a lot of people into the fold whether through banking, through payment system, the direct verified, etc., than ever before. And a lot more will be enabled through the use of AI. Lots of services which I spoke about. And the other is that I think India can be one of the biggest beneficiaries in terms of job creation through AI, which is a point a lot of people miss. AI has both front end and back end opportunities. So front end opportunities is what everybody talks about, that it can create solution A and solution B, and it'll generate this for me and do that for me, etc. But the back end opportunity is in most of the things I've been talking about in terms of collecting data, making that data usable, building specific models, ensuring the guardrails within the models, etc., making them relevant to India, building specific solutions, specialized solutions, agents for enterprises, agents for human beings. And then also as a society, despite all the technology development and so on, we have always been, there is always a middleman who provides these services, despite the access to technology. I think there will be an agent to an agent, a human agent to an AI agent, uh, providing these services, right? And that opportunity will only grow. And why not? I mean, if it provides employment to someone or revenue generating opportunity to someone, it provides access to someone, and we get these services so cheap
Yeah.
that almost anybody can afford those, right? So, sum total of all these opportunities for many, many years to come, for decades to come, is going to be a big boost for Indian manpower to create job opportunities for themselves, and therefore for organizations and companies and startups to build these companies. We benefited from the digital revolution, creating IT industry, IT-enabled services industry, and we have an opportunity to create an AI services industry which can be much larger than the previous industries.
I think that's an exciting thought because I think a lot of people oscillate towards the fear portion when it comes to jobs and AI. So this is nice to see as a perspective, talking about the growth and the opportunity that it brings. And I think it's a wonderful note to end this conversation on. Thank you so much for taking the time out, sir. This has truly been insightful for us, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.